So I'm not here today to speak about software. I'm here to speak about one word that I think is challenging in the whole Mediterranean region: stability. We always like stability because in that part of the world we have a lot of history and we think stability is good for us. But then when you ask people what is the definition of stability for you, and a lot of them, stability is no change. Stability, as the first part of the session is called, static. So it's not mobile, it's staying as is. In my view, staying as is does not exist because the world is moving. So you're always moving with the world. You're either moving forward or moving backward. So the problem of stability is when we define it wrong, we get illusion of stability. And the illusion of stability, in my view, is the cause of a lot of evil in that part of the world. So look at our governments. I come from Egypt, a country with stable government. For 30 years, we had the same president. How more stable can you get? 1,560 weeks of stability. That took 2 weeks of peaceful protests to take this government down. 2 weeks for 1,560 of stability. So it's not only Egypt. It started in Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Syria. If in 2010, not longer ago, I would ask you about those 4 countries, the view was leaders who've been there for so long, stable, constant, it's great. Stable is good if you're stable compared to others. So you always have to ensure that you're in movement, you're moving somewhere. And does not only apply to countries, it also applies to companies where I come from, at business. If you're stable, it means you're at risk. Look at Sony, a great company that still is a great company. But during my days when I was young, so probably a lot of the younger people on the crowd won't know that, but there was this Sony device called the Walkman. It's big, it was yellow, it was headphones, you put a cassette inside it and listen to music. So the owners of portable music in the world were Sony. Then MP3 or digital music came along, and Sony decided, no, this digital music thing is messing with our stable business model. We will not touch it. We will continue to focus on our business model, and we will be stable. Illusion of stability. What happened? iPhone, iPod came along and ate Sony's lunch. Lucky for Sony that Sony is still alive. You can't say the same to other companies. MySpace, digital media, social network was the star. And what happened? It was bought by News Corp. Even better news. Then suddenly Facebook bypassed it, and now you might not even hear of MySpace. And when the CEO of News Corp talked, he said, our problem when we bought MySpace is we bought it so expensively, we didn't want to change anything. We wanted to be stable. We wanted to keep it as is. What happened? They had to sell MySpace for 10% of what they bought it for a few years later. Even MySpace is luckier because it's still alive. Look at Blockbuster, the biggest video rental company in the world. They were renting DVDs, selling them, and charging you fees for every day you have the DVD. Then Netflix came along and decided, you know what, I'll change all of that. Blockbusters looked at it. Actually, Blockbuster met with Netflix and said, we might buy you. And then again, they decided, no, let's not support that model because it messes up with our stable environment. Let's push it aside. What happened? Blockbuster is unluckiest of the 3 because they went bankrupt. They don't exist anymore. But Netflix is a $20+ billion company. So stability could actually be the biggest enemy of stability. If you don't look at comparative and quantify how you're moving, it's a very big risk. I'm a big Romanista, so I'm a very big Roma fan. Yeah. So I was in the stadium 2 days ago. We've been drawing for 9 games. So stability. We just want to draw 1 more game against Fiorentina, and we'll go to the next level. What happened? Stability bit us where it shouldn't have bitten us, and we lost. We conceded 3 goals in the first 20 minutes. It was not stable. We were out. It was one of the unhappiest nights in the recent future for Roma team and for myself as a fan. Why again? Because we were thinking stability, okay, we're drawing, we can continue doing what we're doing. So in that part of the world, stability comes because we have great history. Prime Minister Renzi a week ago was in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh, presenting in the Egyptian Economic Development Conference, and he was talking to his Egyptian President Sisi, saying the same thing. Italy and Egypt have a common enemy for their growth. It's their great history. It's their great heritage, because we think we have it all. We think we can be stable, and for us to change and to do better, we have to be more aggressive. Also in the Mediterranean, we have the same challenge. When we think of stability, we think of gray hair. The older you are, the more experienced you are. And it was a challenge for me in all of my career because I was younger. I came to Italy to work for 4 years for wind. I was 34 then, and it was not acceptable for a manager of a company this size to be that young. In Egypt, it wasn't acceptable. So when I crossed the Mediterranean to the other side, I said, okay, Italy is a first world country. We're a third world country. Things will be different. They weren't. It was still the Mediterranean. People thought, okay, you're here. You have this job because you're the husband of the wife of the owner. At that point in time, of the daughter of the owner. At that point in time, the daughter was 9 years old. So I wasn't the husband, luckily. But you had to work and prove yourself. It doesn't mean that old and experience isn't good. It means that both have to come together to create this change, to create this instability, because this instability and this challenge is the only way you can create real stability. So again, you're telling us about the problem. What is the solution? In my view, the solution is very simple, and it comes in one word. It's quantification. Meaning, for you to know if you're stable or not, if you're moving in the right direction or not, you have to be able to quantify. As simple as movement. If you're moving with your car, you're always looking at the speed you're moving at. You're always looking at the distance to the destination you're going on. So you can't take your career or anything and just decide, it's doing good. If you can't quantify it, you can't decide if it's doing good or if it's doing bad. You can't quantify if it's going in the right direction or not the right direction. I read this quote once, that if you can't measure it, you can't control it. And I took it, changed it a bit, and used it in all my businesses moving from there. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So quantification is super important. You have to be able to quantify, and I always quantify anything I do, even when we do some stuff for charity. And people think sometimes I'm numbers crazy because you say, you don't have to quantify everything. The good things can't be quantified. I say, no, if you can't quantify it, we won't be able to know, are we doing good? Are we improving? Or we are simply regressing? And again, if I use my beloved Roma as an example, since January, we've been number 2. So every time we do a bad game, we look at one number. We say, okay, we're still second in the league, we're doing good. But if you want to quantify, you have to look at multiple variables, multiple data points, and ensure that you're not lying to yourself. So yes, we're number 2 because the first half of the season we did much better. But if we would have looked for only the data of the second half of the season, we were not number 2. I don't know if we were even in the top half. So if I'm looking at this, I will quantify the last 3 games. I will quantify how much are we scoring versus others. I will quantify how much are we conceding against others. It's the same for a startup. When I mentor a lot of startups in Egypt, I always tell, they always come and say, you're a startup, they're young, people love them, and there's always this mushy feeling, people like startups and tell them, I like you, I want to support you. And then I keep asking them, how are you defining that your business is growing? And numbers doesn't mean revenue. A lot of startups like Facebook waited for a very long time to make revenue, but they have a lot of other KPIs. How many users are active on my system? How long do they stay? How many other users they refer to my system? How much does it cost me to serve them? Is my cost going up or going down? Are the users staying longer than they used to and not? And these are all your internal data. But more importantly, into quantification, in my view, is comparative quantification. Because people will always compare. That's what happened in Egypt. We were content. We had the same president for so long. But then internet came along. We were comparing. We were seeing what's going on in the other countries. Why are we not improving like they were improving? And then Tunisia happens, and we say, okay, why can't we change like Tunisia changed? Because comparative quantification is as important as quantification. And that takes you back to stability. Whenever you look at stability in absolute and say, okay, I'm constant, you're not quantifying, you're not comparing, you're in trouble. You're not taking enough risks. There is this great quote I read recently. It was, a ship is safe in the harbor. But that's not what ships are for. So you don't build a ship to leave it in the harbor. So you always have to take risks, change, look forward, and the only way you can look forward and change and improve is by quantifying, by ensuring that this illusion of stability is not your biggest enemy, is not letting you give up your full potential, whether it's your personal potential, your team's potential, your company's potential, or your country's potential. I like to close with a quote. I always close with most of my speeches because it also relates very well. It talks about success is a journey, not a destination. So it's an ongoing, changing thing. You don't reach success and stop. You reach success and you continue to succeed. You continue to quantify and you continue to compare. So with that, I thank you for your time and I wish you the most success.